How's it going, everyone? Got quite a lot to talk about in this video. A lot of rumblings regarding a potential Sony event. The next State of Play livestream potentially won't be all too far away. Now, before we get into this video, I just want to ask you guys, please like this video and do leave a comment with your thoughts. It really does help out the channel a lot, and it is much appreciated. Sony looks to be prepping up a new State of Play event. All three platform holders look set to host digital showcases in the coming weeks as Giant Bomb journalist Jeff Grubb shares his thoughts on the months ahead after Microsoft announced a new developer direct for next week, as noted on Push Square, noting that he claims a State of Play livestream is coming from Sony, and he expects it to take place within the next few weeks. It also sounds like there will be a Nintendo Direct in February. A State of Play makes all the sense in the world, given that, yes, Sony first party is pretty quiet, but the fact is there's a lot of third-party exclusivity agreements of titles that are coming out very shortly. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Rise of the Ronin are both coming out within a 1-month period, and you want to do some promotion for those games. At least do the final push on both those games. Not that FF7 Rebirth really needs it. Rise of the Ronin, I don't think will need it that much, but it is coming out on the same day as Dragon's Dogma 2, and I think, that game is going to be hindered a little bit by that. Like, I know a lot of you guys are like, oh, it's no big deal, I'll just buy all the games. Yo, that's not going to be the case for everyone, and Rise of the Ronin, to me, is the exact kind of game that I think is going to be impacted by the fact that Dragon's Dogma is coming out. Dragon's Dogma has the benefit of being a multi-platform title. Rise of the Ronin being only on PlayStation and them still going with that release date, I just don't think that's a good idea. And a $70 game, two $70 games, because Dogma 2 is Capcom's first $70 title. That's just gonna be a tall ask for a lot of people, but that is just my 2 cents. It is interesting as well, because I've been pretty vocal about it. Sony first party in 2024 looks absolutely weak. Like, it is January right now. You go back to January of last year, and we kind of knew that Spider-Man 2 was at least going to be the one big game we could all be excited for. What is the one big first-party title that we're excited for this year, guys? Because I don't know. I don't know what game is going to be that blow-away title from Sony first party in 2024. And this is the fact that we don't have one game. I would have said 2023 was a pretty weak year for Sony first party. You can make the argument, hey, VR2 came out. They had stuff like Horizon Call of the Mountain, Burning Shores, etc., and at least you were able to cap off the year with God of War Valhalla, and maybe you'll have some surprise releases like that. But in terms of big budget titles, we don't even have anything at the level of a Marvel Spider-Man 2. Not one game that's coming out this year that's from first party. FF7 Rebirth, 3-month time exclusive. Rise of the Ronin, third-party exclusivity agreement, and Sony is publishing the game. But in terms of first-party published titles, from a Sony Ben, from a Naughty Dog, a Guerrilla, one of those studios, nothing. And you go back to 2022, that year you had 3 major releases with Horizon Forbidden West, Gran Turismo 7, and God of War Ragnarok. We are in a down period when it comes to PlayStation first party, and I just want to see some announcements in regards to that. Now, if they're gonna come out and say, hey, Ghost of Tsushima 2 is coming out this year, and they announce it and it's ready to come out by the fall, hey, great. I would be excited about that, and I would actually prefer that instead of announcing games years in advance. Like, yo, they announced Wolverine back in 2021, and that game's not gonna come out until probably 2026. So, if they want to go the route of turning around games quicker, that'd be great. But first party, as excited as I am for 2024, and I think it looks to be a crazy year, especially this early 2024 portion, this Q1, Sony first party is that one area that I just think is a barren wasteland. And it's really unfortunate, because those are the games that, if you own a PlayStation, those are some of your favorite games every year. Like, go back to 2018, you had Spider-Man and God of War in the same year. 2019, at least you had Days Gone. You had Death Stranding that year as well, but I know, that was a Kojima Productions title, that was a third-party agreement, and ultimately it came to PC. Yeah, at least you had Days Gone, if nothing else. 2020, you had Ghost of Tsushima and Last of Us Part 2. And 2020, you had stuff like Demon Souls Remake. That's another studio. Bluepoint. We haven't heard from Bluepoint in a while. Maybe they can get a title out in 2024. That's just the one area where I'm just scratching my head a little, being like, Sony first party, what is going on here? But a State of Play would hopefully give us some clarity on that. And yes, I know, Live service is a big deal. Sony invested so much into live service. When titles like A Last of Us Factions get canceled, well, that was supposed to be a big title coming out one of these years. That's no longer a thing. Concord is gonna be one of their major releases of the year. You can call it a major release, you can call it not a major release, but Concord is one of those games. And you do have Helldivers 2. You do have Helldivers 2 coming from Arrowhead Studios. Arrowhead, more of a second-party studio, and I think Helldivers 2 looks like a good game, but it's a smaller budget title. And it's a game that is more multiplayer-centric in terms of those single-player Sony experiences. I just don't see a lot of that coming from first party, but, you know, they might have something under their sleeves. But I think this all stems back to that PlayStation showcase that happened back in June of last year that was just god-awful. One of the worst events relative to the excitement level for that event. That event was absolutely atrocious. Like, a terrible, terrible showcase. One of the worst, again, in relative to how excited people were for it. But, you know, what can you do? Maybe I'm a little bit down on Sony, but I am really, really excited for this calendar year, and especially Q1 for these game releases. But Sony first party is leaving a lot to be desired, at least at this stage of the game. We'll see if that changes with a couple of announcements, and a state of play could certainly do that. But a state of play, again, that is your smaller stream, and that's not your showcase event. At least that's what we initially had thought. We thought the showcase events were going to be those tentpole events that really set the table and set the next 12, 18 months of game release. Then they failed to do that back in June of last year. And I feel like a lot of people do think I'm like super harsh towards PlayStation and Sony, but guys, this is a PlayStation-centric channel. PlayStation has always been my console preference, and it's literally the console I picked up every generation. It's my first console ever, etc., etc. You're gonna be a little bit more critical to the platform that you like when it's underperforming, and I think PlayStation at this point is underperforming in terms of the schedule of 2024. I get it. They put a lot of resources into live service, and that was ultimately gonna eat away at what first party was gonna deliver from a single player standpoint. That was a reality. I think some people thought that, you know, live service was just gonna be an addition to it, but when you look at 2024, the fact is the one major first party title that we know about that's probably coming out this year is Concord. That is the game. I believe Fair Game, it's in flux on whether or not it's 2024. If Fair Game comes out, great. But are you going to be happy with that? Are you going to be happy with Concord and Fair Game being two of the major first-party Sony titles? There are other titles that are in development, like a Death Stranding 2, again, that's a Kojima Productions title, but still, that's probably not 24. Wolverine, I saw a lot of people being like, yeah, Wolverine is 2024. That was just like a ridiculous thought from the get-go. There was no way that Insomniac, as talented as they are and as quickly as they churn out games, was gonna follow up the release of Spider-Man 2 and go right into Wolverine the following year. That would just be an insane level of work from Insomniac, and yeah, I just don't think that was ever on the table. People will point towards things like Miles Morales coming out and then followed up with Ratchet Rift Apart. Well, Miles Morales was a smaller standalone expansion style game, like an Uncharted Lost Legacy. And then, you know, Ratchet was a bigger game. It really comes down to, is Naughty Dog gonna drop a game soon? Are they gonna reveal a title soon? Like, that's a question in terms of a single-player game, since Faction seems to have been shelved. And then, you know, there's other projects that we hear about, the Horizon multiplayer game, but again, a lot of this is multiplayer game talk. Like, a lot of you guys probably want those big Sony single-player style of games. Maybe that's an area where Sony is gonna put their foot off the gas a little bit. Yeah, they're gonna be invested into their IPs like Horizon, God of War, Last of Us, etc., etc., but maybe it's going to be those IPs that they're really focused on and then surrounded by a lot of live service properties that they can monetize for a lengthier period of time. I hope that's not the case, and it does seem like maybe Sony's going to shift their mindset as far as live service goes, but we'll see how that turns out. A couple studios that could be working on stuff, Sony Bend Studio, of course, and Bluepoint are the two that I'm like, what are they working on? Bend Studio now working on a Days Gone too, so like just remember that. But you know, they could be working on a new open world game, taking the fundamentals they learned with Days Gone and then implementing some sort of multiplayer element to it. That's what we had heard. And then Bluepoint, who knows if they're working on a new IP, a full-on remake. Maybe they're working on multiple titles. There's definitely stuff in the works. It's very unlike Sony outside of when a new console drops to announce a game and then release it just a few months after. That's why I'm worried about the 2024 first party lineup of titles more than anything. It's like we don't have any announcements. It's not like we're waiting on those announcements for a new console to be revealed, unless you want to pair it with a PS5 Pro or something like that, but we'll see how that turns out as well. But that is going to do it for me. Again, a State of Play event might be happening here shortly, hopefully in the next few weeks, and hopefully it does set the table for PlayStation in 2024, because outside of the third-party exclusives, which there are certainly some cool ones, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Stellar Blade, Rise of the Ronin, those are great, but I'm talking about first-party games. If it's just Concord this year, I think we could easily say that would be the worst year for first-party PlayStation ever, and I don't think it's gonna be just Concord. Like, that would just be abysmal, but we'll see how it turns out as far as that's concerned. That's gonna do it for me. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.